Alex Thompson wiped sweat from his forehead as he scrolled through yet another dismal apartment listing. At 27, a construction worker saving for his own place in Chicago, the search for affordable housing felt endless. Then, an ad caught his eye. Spacious one-bedroom apartment, prime location, excellent condition, unbeatable terms. Hope surged. He dialed the number immediately. A pleasant female voice answered. "Hello?" "Hi," Alex said, trying to sound professional. "I'm calling about the apartment for rent. Alex Thompson. I'd love to see it today if possible." "Absolutely," the woman replied, her voice bright. "I'm Victoria. We can meet at the building in, say, 45 minutes. Does that work?" "Perfect. See you then." Alex hung up, a wave of relief washing over him. Finally, a real lead. He arrived early at the address, a typical 9-story brick building nestled in a quiet, tree-lined Chicago neighborhood. Kids played on a well-maintained jungle gym. Young parents chatted on benches. It felt safe, normal, a stark contrast to the rundown places he'd seen. Lighting a cigarette, he surveyed the scene. This felt right. A silver sedan pulled up. Victoria stepped out, followed by a sturdy man. "Alex, I'm Victoria, and this is my husband, David." Victoria was petite with warm brown eyes and a friendly smile. David was taller, solidly built, with an easy grin. They shook hands. "Great to meet you both," Alex said. "Let's head up," Victoria suggested, leading the way into the clean, well-lit lobby. The elevator ride to the 8th floor was smooth. Apartment 49 had a heavy steel door. Victoria unlocked it, and Alex stepped inside. It was undeniably appealing. Sunlight streamed through large windows in the living room, illuminating pale gray walls and new laminate flooring. The kitchen, separated by a breakfast bar, featured modern appliances and granite countertops. The bathroom was compact, but updated. It wasn't luxury, but it was clean, bright, and significantly nicer than anything else in his price range. The previous tenant left suddenly, Victoria mentioned casually as Alex inspected the closet space. "We did a quick refresh." They discussed terms. The rent was suspiciously low for the size and location. Alex hesitated for only a moment. The practicality outweighed the niggling doubt. "I'll take it," he said. "Can I move in tomorrow?" "Of course," Victoria beamed, handing him the keys. David remained quiet, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. The next day, with the help of his friends Mark and Chris, Alex moved his meager belongings. Boxes were hauled, furniture assembled, and by evening, they celebrated his new start with pizza and beer. The apartment felt welcoming, the air fresh despite its age. After his friends left, Alex tidied up, exhaustion finally claiming him as he collapsed onto his air mattress. He woke hours later, parched. The moonlight, unobstructed by curtains, bathed the apartment in an eerie silver glow. Still half asleep, he shuffled towards the kitchen. As he passed the breakfast bar, a flicker of movement caught his eye, a dark shape darting left to right, towards the refrigerator. He blinked, dismissing it as a trick of the light and fatigue. He reached for the fridge handle. A hand, impossibly cold and gnarled, clamped onto his shoulder. Alex froze. His heart seized, a fist of ice squeezing his chest. Slowly, terrified, he turned his head. A woman stood beside him. Her face was a grotesque mask of fury, skin leathery and deeply lined, eyes sunken pits of pure malice beneath wild, tangled gray hair. Her lips were pulled back in a silent, hateful snarl. Her grip tightened, bony fingers digging into his muscle like claws. She seemed to be trying to lift him, her strength unnatural. Alex woke with a strangled gasp, drenched in cold sweat, tangled in his blanket. Morning light streamed in. He was alone in the silent apartment. Shaking, he turned on his Bluetooth speaker, blasting music to drown out the lingering terror. Just a nightmare, he told himself firmly. Stress, new place, cheap beer. He spent the day cleaning, trying to scrub away the unease. That evening, settled at his laptop playing a horror game with the TV news murmuring in the background, a sharp clink came from the kitchen, like glass touching glass. He muted the TV. Silence. He resumed his game. Clink. Scrape. The distinct sound of metal utensils rubbing together, like someone washing dishes. His blood ran cold. The nightmare flooded back. Imagination. It's just the building settling. But the fear was visceral, primal. He stood, legs trembling, and crept towards the kitchen doorway. Taking a deep breath, he lunged inside, slapping the light switch. The kitchen was spotless. Utensils hung neatly on their rack. The sink was dry. Nothing was out of place. Alex leaned against the counter, heart pounding like a jackhammer. See? Nothing. He turned off the TV and computer, seeking the false security of his bed. Sleep came fitfully. A deafening crash shattered the silence at 2:58 a.m., the sound of shattering ceramic followed by light, rapid footsteps, tap, 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 on the kitchen linoleum. This was no dream. Alex sat bolt upright, heart hammering against his ribs. He grabbed the only potential weapon nearby, a heavy ceramic vase from the nightstand, and edged towards the kitchen. A low, guttural muttering drifted out. Not words, but a continuous droning whisper, the sound of someone profoundly disturbed, murmuring incessantly under their breath. The voice was old, raspy, filled with venom. Alex's breath hitched. He charged into the kitchen, forgetting the light. Illuminated only by the moonlight, a hunched figure sat at his small table, the same woman from his nightmare. She turned her head slowly, those hate-filled eyes locking onto his. As he stumbled backward, she rose, arms outstretched, fingers crooked like talons. The kitchen door slammed shut in his face with unnatural force. Alex scrambled back to his bedroom, slamming and locking the door. He dove under the covers like a child, clutching the small cross on a chain around his neck, prayers tumbling from his lips in a terrified jumble. Fear eventually surrendered to exhausted oblivion. Morning brought no relief. He dressed quickly, grabbed his phone and keys, and cautiously opened his bedroom door. The apartment was quiet. He crept down the hall, dread coiling in his stomach. Peering around the kitchen doorway, he gasped. Utter chaos. The upper cabinets had been ripped from the wall, lying shattered on the floor amidst a sea of broken plates and glasses. A thick, musty odor hung in the air, like decay and damp earth. It took hours to clean up, bagging the shards and hauling them downstairs. He called Mark and Chris, his voice tight with fear. Seriously, Alex? A nightmare and broken dishes? Mark chuckled skeptically. Probably just cheap cabinets. You weren't there, Alex insisted. It felt evil. Come over tonight, stay, please, bring beer, see for yourselves. Reluctantly, they agreed. That evening, armed with beer and snacks, they arrived. As Alex unlocked the apartment door and stepped inside, he saw the bathroom door at the end of the hall swing shut out of the corner of his eye. Did you see that? Alex whispered, pointing. Mark smirked. See what? The bathroom door just closed. Chris rolled his eyes. Dude, relax. Probably just a draft. This old building probably leaks air like a sieve. Chris's calm, logical tone was momentarily reassuring. They settled in the living room, music playing, TV on mute. Hours passed, filled with jokes and attempts at normalcy. Around 10:30 p.m., Chris suggested a smoke. They stepped onto the small balcony, the cool Chicago night air a relief. Returning inside, Alex noticed the TV was off. Who turned off the TV? Mark frowned. No one. It was on when we went out. A prickle of unease returned. Alex headed to the kitchen for more beer. Opening the fridge, he grabbed a bottle. As he closed the door, he saw the ceramic sugar bowl on the counter slide smoothly, deliberately, 6 inches towards him. He froze, breath catching. "Guys!" His voice was a strangled whisper. He backed slowly out of the kitchen. The sugar bowl, it just moved. Towards me, Chris sighed dramatically. "Okay, let's check." He marched into the kitchen, flipping on the light. Mark and Alex followed. Everything looked normal. Chris turned, a mocking smile forming. "See? Imagining that..." A harsh scraping sound cut him off. One of the wooden chairs at the table lurched violently sideways across the floor, as if shoved by an invisible hand. 3 pairs of eyes widened in unison. Terror, pure and cold, replaced skepticism. They scrambled back to the living room, hearts pounding. Before anyone could speak, the overhead light blinked out, plunging them into darkness. Silence stretched, thick and suffocating. "Okay, that was weird," Mark breathed, fumbling for his cigarettes. Alex grabbed his own pack, hands shaking. He put a cigarette in his mouth, reaching for his lighter. The TV suddenly blared to life, casting flickering blue light. Alex's cigarette fell from his lips. Near the hallway doorway, a translucent female figure materialized. The witch. Her gray hair floated wildly around her skull, as if underwater. Sunken eyes, pits of darkness fixed on them. Her mouth hung open in a silent scream. She wore tattered, dark rags. Then the computer monitor flashed on, bathing her in a sickly green glow. Behind her, materializing from the shadows near the kitchen, stood 4 tall, hooded figures. Their hoods were strangely misshapen, bulging unnaturally at the sides like hidden horns. A large, hairy hand, ending in long, filthy claws, rested on the witch's shoulder. The overhead light snapped back on. The figures vanished. The 3 men stood paralyzed. The afterimage of the horrific tableau burned into their retinas. They didn't move for 10 minutes, the only sound their ragged breathing. What do we do?" Alex finally whispered, his voice raw. "Sit, just sit," Chris stammered, his face pale. "Maybe it stops?" "Stop!" Mark exploded. "Are you insane? We're leaving, now!" Maybe Mark's right," Alex conceded, the terror still vibrating through him. "Let's just finish this beer and go crash at Mark's." The beer ran out. Alex held up the empty bottle. "Kitchen run. Who's brave?" "You first," Mark muttered. "Fine," Alex said, steeling himself. "Let's just go together." They crept into the hall. Alex flicked on the light. A new sound started, a dry, rasping scratch, 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 like claws slowly dragging down the inside of the front door. "Open the door," Alex hissed at Mark, his eyes fixed on the kitchen entrance. Mark fumbled with the deadbolt. Alex reached for the kitchen light switch. He flipped it. The scene inside was impossible. All the kitchen cabinets, the table, the chairs, were suspended, floating near the ceiling. As they watched, frozen in horror, everything dropped with a thunderous crash. The lights in the hallway and living room began strobing madly. The TV and computer speakers erupted in a deafening blare of static. Pots, utensils, small appliances flew off counters, clattering against walls, and in the chaotic, flickering light, the witch reappeared, fully formed, shrieking soundlessly, her clawed hands reaching for them. Behind her, the four hooded figures advanced, their forms darker, more solid. The air crackled with malice. They didn't think. They reacted. They bolted out the front door, slamming it behind them with a force that echoed down the stairwell. They didn't stop running until they were blocks away. The next morning, bleary-eyed and shell-shocked, Alex called Victoria. He recounted everything, starting with the dream and ending with the impossible destruction. He demanded his rent back. Reluctantly, she agreed to meet him at the apartment with David. Mark and Chris came for moral support. As they waited outside the building, discussing the horrors, an elderly woman on a nearby bench overheard. "Apartment 49, you say?" she asked, her voice hushed. Her companion nodded grimly. "That was old Mrs. Henderson's place," the first woman said. "Victoria's mother. Lord, she was a strange one. Never talked, just mumbled to herself day and night. Folks said she practiced witchcraft. Terrible noises came from there, shrieking, laughing that wasn't right, banging like a herd running through the halls. Called the police once. They found her. Well, she was having some kind of fit, thrashing on the floor. They took her to the state hospital. Didn't last 2 days. She crossed herself. Place has been cursed ever since." Victoria and David arrived, looking tense. Upstairs, the apartment was a war zone, far worse than Alex had left it. Furniture was overturned, drywall was gouged, belongings were scattered and broken. Victoria gasped, hand flying to her mouth. David just stared, grim-faced. "I'm done," Alex stated flatly. He packed his remaining belongings quickly. Mark and Chris helped carry boxes down to a borrowed truck Victoria had arranged. As Alex hauled the last bag towards the front door, Victoria followed him out, handing him an envelope of cash. "Thanks," Alex muttered, turning to leave. Suddenly, Victoria screamed. Her long brown hair was yanked violently backwards, pulled taut in a horizontal line as if gripped by an invisible fist inside the apartment. She stumbled, clawing at her scalp. "Mama, let go, please!" Just as abruptly, the tension vanished. Her hair fell limply around her shoulders. She stood trembling, tears streaming down her face. She looked at David, her voice a broken whisper. "That's it. We're selling. Today." Alex didn't look back as he descended the stairs. He knew no amount of renovation could cleanse that apartment. Some darkness, once invited in, refused to leave. The steel door of apartment 49 closed behind Victoria with a heavy, final click, sealing its grim history within. The next owner, he thought grimly, would have a very rude and terrifying awakening. The evil within wasn't finished. It was merely waiting.